Hey, scrappers and recyclers, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every Sunday we talk about what's going on in the precious metals market, industrial metals market. We look at safety, and then we have a free for all after that. Who knows what's going to come up with the rest of the discussion? It's great to be here. I look forward to having a real fun hour with you all. And let's see, who do we have in the house already? We've got Scrapping Irish is in the house. JR Cat's in the house. Roger at CU Scrapping is in the house. Great to have everybody on board so far. I'm sure we'll be picking up a few more as we come along here. And man, it's been a very interesting week to say the least. Electronic Scrappers joined us. Welcome, Electronic Scrapper. Great to have you here. All right. Well, let us get right into our precious metals discussion. And we are talking about gold today. Boy, howdy, look at that. Gold up at 3,463 and 30 cents an ounce. That's US dollars an ounce. That is, oh, excuse me. That is a really nice, really nice. We love that. Now, remember, I am not affiliated with APMEX. I am not sponsored by APMEX. I get no compensation whatsoever from APMEX. They're just one of the groups that I have used for my buying and selling of precious metals. And I always recommend that folks have a certain amount of physical gold and silver in their portfolio. And the reason I say physical gold and silver is because if you're not holding on to it yourself, you don't own it. The paper certificates aren't worth the paper they're printed on. But if you're holding on to that gold or that silver, round or bar, it's yours. You can barter it, you can trade it, you can sell it. So there's plenty you can do with it. So we are looking at the 1 week time frame here, and we saw some interesting movements here with gold. We sort of had a slow climb, and then we had this little bump kind of thing going on later in the week, and then we had a nice little climb up here. We're sort of tooling along here as investors try to figure out what they're doing here for the going forward. If we look at the month, well, we're up 4.57%, which is really nice. When you look at the 1 month, it sort of smooths out that period that we were looking at here, of course. But basically, for the month, we climbed up, we dropped down, we climbed up, but overall, we had a nice climb. So this is what we like to see. And we're going to pop over here to the quarter real quick. A lot of variability going on here in the quarter, but if we look at the 1 year, we sort of get rid of some of that. Well, we don't get rid of the variability; it's still there. You just don't see it because things, the time scale we're looking at. Overall, we're up 41.42%. And it's kind of interesting because you kind of see we had early in the year, it was rising, it dropped off, it started rising again. Then we had a bit of a spike here, and now gold has been bouncing off of this level here for a while now. It kind of hits that and then it drops back down, and it hits it, it drops back down. Let us go over to the Trading Economics site and we'll see that more clearly. So this is the 1 year chart on Trading Economics. When we go to the candlesticks, they're going to represent 1 day of trading. And you can see right in here in late April, we went over this ceiling that gold has been hitting. We got up over we got like 3,500 and some change. Let's zoom in here a little bit to make that easier to see. So here you can see that we got up to 3,500. But there's sort of been this ceiling, this resistance in here at the 34.30-ish, 34.50-ish kind of level that we keep hitting and then falling off again. We've got some good price increase going on here. Gold climbed to 34.45 an ounce on Friday. Uh, and it's set for a second weekly gain as investors sought refuge amid uncertainty over U.S. monetary policy. Common theme. I mean, this is what's going on. This is what we've been hearing for quite some time now. The current U.S. administration is doing things that are making long-term investors unsure, uncomfortable. Therefore, they are going into safe haven assets, gold being the number one safe haven asset. So that's been driving the price of gold up. These uncertainties for us as scrappers are good because these gold prices are good. It means that our e-scrap will continue to draw good prices. But of course, the downside is we are paying for that, for the ups and downs and the price swings and stuff like that in other things. Let's see. The current uncertainty has to do with the administration's pressure on the Fed and what that's going to mean for rate cuts and consumer spending. So, for those of you that are not U.S. citizens, we have in the U.S. A lot of modern countries have this banking system that is we here in the U.S. we call it the Fed. It is independent or supposed to be independent of the political administration, and that is to ensure that the political leadership of the nation, whether it's the United States or any other nation, doesn't artificially manipulate interest rates to make their actions look better or more financially sound than they really are. There's a very important reason why having a federal bank not directed by the political party that's in power at any given time. And, that is, you can just imagine how politicians would try to manipulate currency in order to prop themselves up. And then the long-term challenges that can present, whether it's in inflation, deflation, stagflation, there are things that can occur. Now, here in the United States, our Fed actually has a dual mandate. So on the one hand, it is balancing our currency and keeping that strong. On the other hand, it's also trying to keep employment strong. So that has an interesting balance that has to happen because if you want, there are things that you can do that would cause monetary policy to be strong, but could have a negative impact on employment. There are things that could be done to really help employment, but then could have long-term negative consequences for the U.S. economic situation. So that's why it's really important that a Fed, especially, I'm speaking from the position of the U.S. Fed, remain independent from the political leadership. And those nations around the world that have successfully kept their central banks separated from their political influences usually have pretty stable, strong currencies. And whether or not they manage the employment side of it depends on the mandates of their particular countries. So as we see the uncertainty going on here in the U.S., we have investors going into gold. That's driving up the prices for gold. And that's good for us as scrappers because that means that the prices for our gold-bearing material stay strong, even goes up. I don't know how many of you recognized or saw that boardsort.com recently raised the prices for gold RAM. So that's pretty cool this what we're seeing here is really good for us as scrappers because this will keep folks like boardsort.com either increasing the prices or at least keeping them where they are as we keep moving forward. And I suspect we'll probably see some more prices go up because when we look at the forecast for gold, what we see here, and draw your attention to this part of the chart right here. And what you can see is a nice upward track for gold. Looks like it's going to clear 3,500 in the next, so mid to late September-ish. The forecast is to clear 3,500. So, that's a really good, strong signal for gold. And we really like that. I mean, that's good for us, isn't it? It's a lot of good signals for us on the gold front. All right, so let's see. What do we got going on from? I'm going to leave this chart. I'll tell you what I'm going to do here, though. I'm going to go back to the line chart. We're going to go to the year. We're going to go to the line chart, and then we're going to go to the forecast. There we go. All right, that's a nice clean chart for us to look at. Wow, we are talking about what's going on. Let's see, I'm going up. I want to see what kind of comments and see who else has dropped in. E-Waste Jill has joined us. Welcome, D-Scraps. D-Scraps, E-Scraps has joined us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. JP's E-Scrap. Great to have you here, JP. Daniel Fior, I don't care what the commodities chart says, you're at the mercy of your scrapyard on which you get paid. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's such an important point. When I am talking about these numbers, these are the spot prices or the futures, depending upon what metals we're looking at. And, these are investor grade prices. These are business, large scale business type prices, the reserve stock kind of prices. This is not what we're getting paid at our scrapyards, which is going to be quite a bit less, because each one of our scrapyards has to factor in all of their operating costs on top of, the labor costs, the insurance costs, the property taxes, the shipping costs. So every one of our scrapyards is going to be very different in what they pay us. And that's why you will see prices, scattered all over the country and around the world being so very different. It's very, very important that you know what your yard is paying and watch the trends of your yard. Because just because one metal, copper or silver or gold or aluminum or whatever is going up doesn't mean it will be going up at your yard. So Daniel, that's a very, very important point that you brought up, and everybody needs to keep that one in mind. Let's see. E-Waste Jill is saying the biggest thing is federal bank guarantee. Let's call it the bank guarantees up to 200,000 and must have that cash available. So what Jill is saying is that here in the United States, our banks and credit unions guarantee up to 200,000. That means that if something happens to that bank or credit union, those of us who have put our money in there will get that money back up to the federal limit. These were safety gaps that were put in place years ago after things like the Great Depression and stuff, where people lost their entire life savings when banks went belly up. It's those kind of protections are in place to help prevent bad things from happening when markets go south for us, at least here in the United States. It's a good thing, right? And we've seen the government has had to come in with some banks and savings and loans and things like that, and quote unquote bail them out, which means pretty much paying us, making sure that we're taken care of as people who had money in those banks and institutions. So I agree, scrapping Irish. I agree. In fact, here's how much I agree. Oh man. Uh, J.R. Cat says that he's been turning Fed notes into long-term food storage. 50 quarts of tomatoes yesterday. Oh man, yeah. That's a fun thing to do, and it is really it's a great thing to do. If you have the ability and the know-how to can fruits and vegetables and stuff, it really helps. Um, I've been really enjoying going to the farmers market. Mrs. Shark and I get out to the farmers market every other week or so. Peaches are just wonderful right now. Watermelons are awesome right now. Just absolutely loving it. Roger saying that he's grateful for $37 RAM. Yeah, you know it, bud. You know it. Mike Meltdown in the house. Mike, welcome. Great to have you here. Great to have you here. All righty. Well, let us now take a moment and the safety note for the week. As you know, more times than not, the safety note for the week is something that I observed or experienced and decided to share. Well, fortunately, this time it wasn't something that I experienced. Unfortunately, it was something that one of our friends experienced. Now, I'm not going to say their name. They may or may not want to own up to it in the course of the live stream or over on Scrapping Iris's live stream. But what I will say that one of our scrapping friends had a misunderstanding with their grinder. So that led me to decide that, well, you know what? We ought to talk about grinder safety. And it has to be one of the more dangerous tools that we use as scrappers, power tools. Um, Usually we're talking two sizes in a grinder. We've got the 4.5, 5 inch, and then there's the 7 and 9 inch. And there's a huge difference between the two, a huge difference. So right here we see in this picture, we're comparing a really not safe situation to a moderately safe situation. So, of course, the unsafe situation is right here. We have this user has decided that they didn't need to wear gloves. And here, wait a minute, let me make this a bit bigger. So this person decided they don't need to wear gloves. I've heard these arguments all the time. The gloves, I don't get as good a grip, or those kind of things. It Clearly, I mean, just the sparks alone are going to get your attention, but the PPE is really, really important. Gloves being right up there on the top of the list. Now, it doesn't mean that this person is, going to get a good blessing here because they're wearing gloves, which is fine. But you can see right here, they didn't put the handle on their grinder. Now, this looks like this is probably a 4.5, 5 inch grinder. A lot of people don't put that handle on there because they're not using it for something that would necessarily require that extra stability. So I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt, except for the fact that we can see that they're cutting through sheet steel. And that can have some kick to it if you bind up the blade and stuff. And, having that handle, that safety handle attached, well, that would have been a really smart thing to do. And from my perspective. Uh, so let's take a minute then, and let's just talk about what do we mean here. So when you're talking about a grinder, the one of the first things you want to do is pay attention to your surroundings. Okay, is your workbench clean and free of stuff that's going to get in the way or cause you to get distracted, or be a problem? So you want a clean, organized workspace when you're using your grinder. You don't want to be tripping over stuff. You don't want to be distracted. You don't want to be using your power tools, especially a grinder, if you've had a couple of drinks for lunch. If you've had a couple of beers or something like that at lunchtime. If you're under the influence of drugs, even some of those over-the-counter kind of things, like a strong decongestant, allergy medicine, something like that, that can make you kind of drowsy and woozy. So you want to be really careful that you're not haven't taken any drugs, legal or otherwise, when you're using especially a grinder. You definitely want to make sure that you are using the correct blade for the material that you are going to cut. You want to make sure that you have that guard in place and that it is properly situated to reduce the amount of sparks and debris that is coming at you. So most modern grinders have pretty good, easy ways to move the guard around so that you can position it to better protect you. The handle I was just talking about, if your grinder comes with the handle, it's always a good idea to have it on. But this is especially important if you are using one of those 7 to 9 inch beasts. First of all, those things are really heavy. Just the tool itself is heavy. And then when you are grinding with it, you have a tremendous amount of torque that you are trying to manage. And this handle is amazing at giving you a lot more control. Plus, as the person who got injured this week would have understood, if you have both hands on the grinder, then the chances of one of those hands being in the way of the blade is much more unlikely. And that is probably, right up there, with the surroundings and the handle. That's your situational awareness. If you're using one hand on your grinder, make sure you know where the other hand is relative to the grinder and the blade. Because our friend who got hurt, well, they kind of messed up on the positioning of their hand relative to the grinder. Now, the reason why I have put this note here about power is if you are using a corded grinder, make sure that the power cord is not in the way of what you're cutting. Make sure you're not going to trip over it. If you are connecting it to an extension cord, don't use one of those cheap little household indoor extension cords. Okay, these things are going to draw a lot of oomphy. So make sure you're using an industrial strength or a heavy duty extension cord that can handle the current. Make sure it's out of the way. It's not going to bind up on things or that you're accidentally going to cut it yourself. If you're using battery operated, it's a little less of a concern. Because the worst that's going to happen is you're going to run out of juice in the battery and then you'll have to replace the battery. So, not as big a concern. Now, the other thing, of course, it goes without saying, but we have to talk about it anyway, is PPE. So when you're using a grinder, think about head, ears, eyes, lungs, digits, right? You may or may not need to have your coconut protected. If you're cutting something that is fixed in place above your head or that could swing around and hit you in the head or something of that nature, then yeah, you want to protect your coconut. If you you're having your coconut protected isn't quite as critical in your shop, where you've got stuff say in a vise and you're not cutting something that's up over top of you and what have you. So in that case, you want to have a hat or a do-rag or something that will protect your head, your hair and stuff from sparks and hot stuff getting into your hair. Hearing protection, yeah, protect those ears, whether it's with goggles, uh, the earmuff style over your ears, or the disposables, the foamies that you stick in your ears. Make sure that you're protecting your ears, your eyes. This one is really obvious. I think everybody would understand that. And I just saw the note here from Roger. So let me go up to this note. Roger made a very important comment. He said he has quit using safety goggles and switched to a full face shield while grinding. I agree, Roger. I agree. This when uh, you get, you got the sparks and the debris flying around. It's hitting you in the face. If you're not wearing the right kind of glasses with side shields or wraparounds, stuff can get in behind those lenses. A full face shield does give you quite a bit more protection. So I understand it, man. I get that one for sure. And your lungs, make sure that you're wearing, this, make sure that you're doing something to keep down that dust from getting inside of you. You're gonna create quite a bit of debris and dust when you're cutting things, whether it's a circuit board or copper pipe or whatever. You don't want to necessarily be inhaling that stuff. It's pretty nasty. So wear a good dust protection to keep from inhaling that. And then, of course, you've got your gloves to protect your fingers. And I don't have work boots on here. We talked about work boots recently, but make sure you're wearing at least closed-toed shoes. If you wear your steel-toed boots at the shop, that's great. But at least make sure you have closed-toed shoes, not flip-flops and Crocs and things that provide little to no protection that you might trip over the flip-flop itself. So the PPE is really important, as to consider. All right, so let's see. We're going to go back to our original picture here, and let's see what other comments have come up. Okay, so Mike is saying that it wasn't him. Oh man, Roger's been using his a lot this week. JR Cat, he's saying he still has all 10 fingers and 12 toes. Okay, man, I'm glad. Especially the 12 toes. I always thought there was something a little bit strange about you. In fact, you know what? I think that deserves. um, let's see. Pyro template. Hey, Sharky, we just had this safety training at work. Oh, very cool. All right. Hey, did I hit everything? Was there anything that you all covered at work that I missed here? Drop a comment and let us know because I want to make sure that I cover things properly. Yeah, let's see. Richard Holbert's in the house. Great to have you here, Richard, as always. Don't patch a cord. Now, hey, you said it for me, man. I don't have to say it. You said it for me. I don't need to. Yes, Roger, some people still have hair that they need to worry about. And it's with some folks that have really long hair. Well, they need to put their hair up, tie it back or something like that, because if your hair gets caught up in your grinder, that's a bad. Yeah, that one can be really bad. I don't know if any of us really have hair that long, but it's something that should be considered. Um, And Richard was saying he was a welder for many years. Hair catches fire very easily and very fast. He used the shield, but if the stuff gets behind the shield, yeah, I tell you what, man, I have smelled my hair burning on more than one occasion. Um, and even when you try, even when you think you're wearing all the right PPE and doing the best you can, sometimes that just happens, and hair really does burn fast. So yeah, you got to really watch out for that. No comment there, Ian. No comment. Um, Mike says, "I'm a man and I will own up to it." Okay, Mike. I didn't say your name, bud. I did not say your name. I let things. But you're owning up to it. So if folks have any questions about what Mike's talking about, you can certainly ask Mike about it. Great to have you here, by the way, Mike and Ian. As always, great to have you here. Um, Ian, you're probably safe to do some scrapping this week because Mike paid the scrap gods in spades this week, so you're probably safe for a while. Okay, let's see. Pyro Templar says, "No, you covered everything. I came in a bit late, so I'm not sure if you said secure the thing you're grinding. I saw someone in job that did. You know what? That's a really good point. And no, I did not say that. I'm glad you brought that up. I really am, because I did not say that. And that is really important. Um, it's it like you said, it can fly out of your hand and fly across the room, which can hurt someone. Plus, it can cause the grinder to bounce and hurt you. And also, you just can't get a good cut unless what you're cutting is well secured. So that is a really, really good point, Pyro Templar. I'm glad you brought that up. Um, yeah, that is sweet. So, and he says that piece of metal shot out from the guy that was cutting it and buried itself in a cinder block. So, imagine if there had been a human body in the way. That would have been tough. It would have been tough. Um, yeah, JR Cat's comment, you can't have enough PPE with 6010 overhead welding. Yeah, I don't, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen there. And um, Mike Mike went ahead and bandaged himself up, and as he and I were talking, I believe he said he also rubbed some copper grit in there, some of the copper shavings in there, because that's just the way Mike is. I don't recommend that you do that, but um, that's one thing you can do. Ian is suggesting duct tape. Uh, and yeah, it's amazing, but duct tape has some first aid values for sure, man. Absolutely. Um, and yeah, I agree, Richard. A chop saw can be a very dangerous tool. The only reason I said the grinder, because most of us have handheld grinders that we use. Um, Not a lot of people use chop saws, so that's why I went with the grinder as the most dangerous that we're apt to deal with here. So, but yeah, the metal chop saw, that can be a pretty dangerous tool for sure. Yeah, Ian, yeah, copper is antiseptic. That's why Mike grounded into his wound, because that's just the kind of guy he is. Speaking of copper, you know what? I am glad that that we did that. Let's go and talk about copper. So here we are, copper, and copper futures were steady around 440 a pound since the record-setting single season plunged nearly 20% in late July after the U.S. government removed the refined copper from its tariffed goods. The U.S. government had threatened to place a broad tariff on all copper goods, but changed at the last minute, so only its semi-finished goods, copper, pure copper things like and ore, so ore cathodes, concentrates were waived, and that created quite a bit of a flur because you had a bunch of copper was getting front loaded into the United States ahead of the tariffs. And then when the tariffs didn't materialize on the ore and the refined stuff, well, now it had to do some adjusting. So what are we talking about here? Let's look at this part of the chart right here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. There we go. So what happened was, you saw this buildup in copper prices leading up to the expected tariff announcement. And then when the tariff came out and they said, we're not going to tax ore and anodes and refined concentrates, well, then the price crashed. And now we've seen this. It's kind of a plateau, but it's trying to climb a little bit out of this as the various users and producers try to seek the balance that's going to go on here. So this is what they're talking about in that discussion. And if this is the 1 year, let's go back out and wait a minute, let's do this. Let's take a look at the whole year again. And you can see that we are down here in the 440-ish range. We've been above it, we've been below it. For the year, we're actually over, right? We started the year down here in the 390s, so we're still over where we were a year ago, which that's pretty nice. And I'm guessing that if we zoom in here and we go to the candlesticks, we're probably going to see a bunch of small kind of So you can see that once we had this big crash, now there's just a bunch of small movements going on here as the markets try to figure out how they're going to figure, where is this new balance, this new normal. So, we're just going to see this play out for a while. Here in the U.S., they need to burn through the stocks that were built up. And then, of course, there's just what's going on in the rest of the world for the consumption of copper. So you've still got China is consuming a lot of copper for their data centers and electrification projects. So then there's also the copper mines that have been having some challenges and shutting down that will have some impact on copper and copper futures. But I want to go back to the comment that was made earlier in the live stream. What is your yard paying you? Because that's the most important thing to all of us in the scrap world. I mean, we can look at the forecast and we can see right here in the forecast that the folks at Trading Economics believe copper is going to get back up over $5 a pound. When are they projecting that to happen? They're projecting it to happen around March of next year, March of 26. All right. So what the folks at Trading Economics are telling us here is that we're going to see copper make a relatively steady climb. The angle of this line is kind of the angle that we saw going on here. So they are saying that they expect copper to once things settle out, start to climb back up again and get back over $5 a pound. But as was noted earlier, it really depends on your yard. What is your yard paying you? And that is very dependent on the contracts that your yard has. Now, I did read where a number of yards were dealing with their buyers canceling the contracts and repricing them. So that you might see some changes at your yard as that goes on. So it's there's I thought it was interesting when I read that the buyers can go ahead and cancel the contract and renegotiate it. I suspect the yards don't have that kind of leverage. If a yard it commits to a contract and then doesn't meet the contract, they usually have to pay some pretty steep penalties. But I guess the buyers get away with whatever they want, because the yards, like just like us, just like scrappers selling to the yards have to sell to the mills, and so there's only so much they can do to protect themselves against the mills making those kind of changes. I'm not sure. I know that some of you have more direct relationships with your yards managers and owners and stuff. So I'm curious if you've heard any comments from your folks on what's happening at your yards. I'm going to leave this chart up, and we're going to talk about copper here. Let's see, what are folks talking about? Let's see. We did just before just as I was going over to talk about copper, Jill made the comment that silver has more antibacterial prevention than copper. Yes, it does. That's where the term silver spoon came from. Wealthy families, back in the day, a long time ago, their children tended to get sick less because their children were literally being fed from silver spoons, which allowed their children to get a certain amount of antibacterial protections that children being fed from wooden spoons or other devices wouldn't necessarily get. So that's where that phrase silver spoon comes from. And Richard made the comment that if you're bleeding, any tape to stop the bleeding will be good. Yeah, you definitely want to stop the bleeding. It's a good thing to do. Let's see. Let's get back here to copper. Richard is looking for copper to go crazy a few months from now. He has a few buckets ready to turn in if it does. Okay. It's possible, Richard. Once all the copper that got front loaded into the United States, gets committed or consumed or, used in production, then prices could start going back up again, or, start making that slow climb back up again. I don't know if it's going to go crazy, but it certainly has the potential to keep going back up. Ed Weber joined us. Ed, welcome. Great to have you here. So Richard thinks people stocked up ahead of the tariffs, and when that runs out, yeah, we were saying they did. I mean, businesses certainly stocked up ahead of the tariffs. They definitely did, and so when those businesses burn through that copper, they're going to need to start buying copper again. It's to be expected. And Richard's also asking what I pay my yard for the stuff I get. Those prices they've asked me not to reveal, Richard. So I'm sorry, but I can't talk about the prices that I've negotiated with the local yard. It's just part of the agreement that I have with them. So that was the discussions for copper. And I do apologize that Richard, but when we negotiated those prices, it was something that was done, that they've asked me not to discuss in public, which is understandable because, they're paying something and I'm paying them something, and, they don't want people showing up saying, hey, oh, I'm just going to go take my stuff to Shark, or, hey, it's just, we don't want to go down that road. So, Hey, JR Cat, are you still buying lead? I know somebody that's in the stream here that has some lead. So if you're still in the mood for lead, drop a comment and let them know that you do or do not want lead, and that way they'll know to reach out to you. Okay, so I got some questions that came along during the last few weeks here uh, about shipping material. And I thought I would take a few minutes here at this stage and talk about shipping. Now, there's, of course, there's the shipping where you put the stuff in your vehicle and take it to your scrapyard or drive it, a couple states away to a yard. So that's one type of shipping. I'm talking about where you box stuff up and pay to have it shipped either to BoardSort or some other buyer around the country. I have had very good luck with two apps, two groups that have helped me a lot with shipping. And so I just want to share this again and talk a little bit about each, so that you all, if you're not using these tools, you at least know that they're there, and you can give some consideration to if you want to use them. The first tool that I use for my smaller packages, so these are things up to in that 40-50 pound range or less, the kind of stuff that you would think, you would say USPS, Postal Service, or UPS or FedEx kind of thing. I use this pirate ship. It is free to join, and what I really like about it is I put in the description, the size of the package weight, and then when I press get a quote, they will compare U.S. Postal Service and UPS. They don't do FedEx, but they do U.S. Postal Service and UPS, and they will give me my price options: cheapest or least expensive, fastest. I can manipulate it. They will tell me if I want to, if USPS is the cheapest, but I want to use UPS, what the difference is going to be. So this is a really good tool. Plus, they have negotiated some really good discounts with the U.S. Postal Service and with UPS. So you're getting some really good discount. Even on flat rate boxes, you're getting discounts with the flat rate boxes. So there's no reason not to use this tool if you ship things either with the Postal Service or UPS. It's a really good tool to use. Now, for a long time, I would get my quote from Pirate Ship. Then I would log into my FedEx account, and I would get the FedEx, even with the discount that they gave me as a returning customer and business. I would always get a better rate here at Pirate Ship. I really recommend. I really like these folks, and I've never had a bad experience with them. You can see right here. You go in. You put in the address that you're shipping it to, right? And it'll remember. So I don't want to call up my shipping history because it'll show people's addresses and things, and I don't want to do that. But it'll remember the people that you ship to. So when you go in and you type in boardsort.com, it'll auto-populate everything that you need for boardsort.com, saving you a lot of time. You go in here, you can take box or rigid shipment, but you can also do envelope and padded, tubes and irregular. You've got your U.S. Postal Service various boxes and envelopes here. You got your UPS boxes and envelopes there. So it's got all the normal stuff that you would use to ship things. So it's a very easy tool. You get a really good discount. I really recommend this for mailing things. And you don't have to be a business. You as Joe Schmo, private citizen, you don't have to have a business at all. I ship stuff to my family using this. Mrs. Shark is using this to send stuff to her friends and family. So just a really good tool. Plus, it's really, really nice to pre-print the label. So you'll get one, it'll give you, you'll pick what you want to pay. You pay with a credit card. You get the label, you get the shipping label, you print the shipping label, you put it on the package. You don't have to wait in line at the post office. You can go right in and put that box into, they almost always have, at the post office, they almost always have some sort of, place where you can just put the boxes right in. You don't have to wait in line. If you do go to the UPS store, again, yeah, you kind of got to wait in line, but you're not waiting for them to ring stuff up and print it. You just hand it to them. They'll give you a receipt for it, and off you go. So I definitely recommend this for your smaller packages that you're shipping. Now, this is all here in the United States. I don't know in other countries what your shipping and postal systems are like. So I apologize to my friends in Europe and Ireland and stuff like that. I can't help you there. Just have no experience with you all. But here in the United States, if you are going to ship something overseas, you can still use Pirate Ship. When you have an international address, it will come up and give you the customs form. So you can complete the customs declaration as well to go along with the package. It'll print it out. It'll be right on the package. Again, saving you all that time down the road. Now, the next step up is when you're shipping Gaylord quantities or pallets. Pallet load stuff. Now we're in what's called less than truckload. And less than truckload, as you can see right here, what it means is you're not filling up an entire truck. And boy, if you can fill up an entire truck, that's when you really save a bunch of money. Here in the U.S. right now, if you can fill up a truck, you're talking 25 cents a pound or so. With LTL, you can sometimes get into that 25 cents a pound, but it means that there's a lot that goes into making that happen. All right, so this is freightquote.com. It's an app. Again, it's free to get an account. And the way freightquote.com works, very similar to Pirate Ship. You log in, you put in, where it's shipping from, where it's shipping to, the dimensions, so the length, width, height, the weight, what is in the package, the box, miscellaneous computer boards, that kind of thing. It will calculate a freight classification for it, and then it will give you options for how much it's going to cost. Now, a couple things that are important. If you don't have a forklift and there's no dock at your facility, so to load the pallet into the truck, then you will need to request liftgate service. That can add $7,500, depending upon the carrier, to the cost of the shipment. If you have your own forklift, then you don't need to worry about it. Make sure that if the person that's receiving it in, like BoardSword, they don't require liftgate because they have docks, and they have forklifts, so you don't have to pay for it on the drop-off end. I have to pay for it at my end because I don't have any way to get it up in the truck. So you fill out all that stuff. It gives you quotes. And what's really interesting to me is, here in the U.S., you'll get the listing of all the usual carriers that you're used to seeing out on the road. FedEx Priority, FedEx Ground, ESTES, Yellow. All the different shipping companies, including some private labels that are out there. And I've been really surprised that FedEx Priority has been both the fastest and least expensive for me to ship most of my stuff to boardsword.com. What that's telling me is that I think I may be in what's called a backhaul location for FedEx. So backhaul means, if the it's very prevalent in the shipping industry. The ships come over from China to the United States. The containers are all full of stuff when they come here. Those containers get emptied, and then ships go back to China empty, or the containers are empty. That's the backhaul part. If you can put something in those containers, or in this case, a truck, you usually get a much lower shipping rate because otherwise the truck would be going empty. So I think I might be on a backhaul route going up to boardsort.com because for FedEx, because it's always been the least expensive and the fastest. And I don't mean just by a few dollars. I mean by $100, $200. And I have a hard time believing that that's just FedEx trying to be nice. Um, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that one plays out for me over the long haul. But uh, freightquote.com, if you're shipping larger quantities, is a really good tool. If you have no idea what you're doing and you're just starting into these larger quantities, then I would recommend, and it was in one of my videos, a company called LDI. You'll have a person assigned to you, and uh, that person will get you your quotes and your information. You'll email them all the particulars. They'll give you all the information. They still have an online portal that you can, do stuff through the online portal as well. But it's always nice that there's a human there who can help you work through things if you're not familiar enough to use something like freightquote.com. So it's a really good tool for shipping stuff. Yeah, and I recommend any one of the three. They're all really good. I'm really satisfied with them, and you'll get all the documentation you need. You'll get all the notices you need. So it's a really good way to do things. And you can, when you're shipping in the less than truckload quantities, you can get your shipping rates down into the 40 cents a pound area pretty easily, and that makes things viable to ship off to board sort that you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to ship off to board sort. So there's some good reasons to go to those larger quantities if you can. But hey, it took me a while to get to where I was comfortable with the larger quantities, and now it's funny. It's like right now at the Shark Cage, I have two pallets that I'm loading up and preparing for different buyers. So you kind of grow into this as you move along in this business. So it's just something you pick up more and more skills as your business grows and you gain more experience. All righty. Well, let's head back over here. Let's see what kind of comments we ended up with uh, as we've been talking. JR Cat says he used DHL. Yeah, DHL is good for overseas. I don't ship much overseas, so I haven't had to use DHL. When I was working in the defense industry, we would ship some stuff via DHL. So yeah, for international stuff, DHL is definitely a good carrier. Homer's Reluctant Odyssey, great to have you here. My UPS store has a self scan for prepaid, so no waiting in line. Oh man, very cool. That is awesome. Always makes me feel technologically superior. No, that's cool. I have noticed that the one of the UPS places here during the winter holiday period, they will put a rack off to one side for prepaids. You're kind of taking a little bit of a risk because they won't scan it. You're putting it on the rack, and you're hoping that nobody takes it off the rack. They put the rack in a place where the employees can see who's showing up, putting stuff in there and those kind of things. It always makes me a little bit nervous because I'm like, yeah, I don't know that one. That one just seems a little bit sketchy. But I like what your store is doing. that you just go ahead and scan it yourself, and now they're responsible for it once you scan it in. Let's see, it's either Office Depot or Office Max here in the area. They do something very similar to what your store is doing there too. So that's very cool. It does save you a lot of time. Uh, yeah, tailgate fees are they kind of suck. I can't wait till I get my own forklift, or I get a place with a dock, because yeah, those tailgate fees they're a pain. I hate the fact that I got to pay those. Um, and Richard does a lot of his own refining, so he's got a lot of his stuff there, and then he sells his stuff to the local scrapyard. So yeah, I mean, if you're taking the stuff to your local scrapyard, none of this shipping is even an issue anymore, right? So, well, hey, it has been a great hour. I have enjoyed chatting with everybody. I really appreciate all the comments and all the fun that we've had. Um, it is time now for us to head across the pond to Ireland and join Scrapping Irish. So, if you have autoplay enabled, I have set up the redirect, so as soon as I end this, you will be automatically redirected over to Ireland, where we will join Scrapping Irish. You never know who's going to come up on the panel, well, you kind of know the regulars, but sometimes we have new people that show up. We never know where the discussions are going to go, because they're all based on your questions and comments. So I hope to see you over in Ireland for the next hour of fun and scrap talk. If I don't, please have a safe and wonderful week, and don't forget to wear your PPE and be careful with your grinding.